2013, on April 17th, a devastating event took place in a small town of West Texas. The ammonium nitrate stored in the flawed building facility of the West Texas Fertilizer Company had detonated. This detonation killed 15 people, mostly first responders, injured more than 250 people, and had a damage radius of over half a mile. The explosion happened 19 minutes after the first call was made, the first site of the fire, 16 minutes after the dispatch of the fire department. The 3-minute delay was due to the West Texas's fire department being a volunteer fire department, so it took a little time to get everybody together. And 11 minutes after the fire department had actually arrived on scene.
This incident was a bunch of fire hazards coming together to make one big problem. Ammonium nitrate is highly explosive, and on top of that, it was starting next to highly flammable material. There was no fire alarm system, there was no fire suppression system. You would only know there was a fire when it was too late. This fire was started by an arsonist who knew all these things, and that made the plant in West Texas the perfect target.
The ammonium nitrate explosion was about equivalent to 2 to 12.5 tons worth of TNT. As it exploded, the airburst going out of the explosion damaged millions of dollars worth of homes, destroying some, flattening others, and causing tons of broken windows and damage across the area. The ground shock that also followed the explosion was devastating, shaking houses and trees and breaking out windows and damaging homes just as much as the air blast. Now, when this ammonium nitrate exploded, or before it exploded, when there was still a fire, the fire department tried to go and get to a fire hydrant, but the closest one was a quarter-mile away, an obvious break of the fire codes. Since it was a quarter-mile away, it took them a very long time for them to get all the way over there, connect it, get water pressure, and start to try to fight the fire. Now, the negligence behind this storage is really what caused this explosion. The explosion occurred because since there was a fire in the warehouse, it ignited the ammonium nitrate, causing it to combust, causing the massive explosion. However, if they had stored the ammonium nitrate properly, away from everything else, this could have been avoided. The ammonium nitrate was overstored, meaning they had way too much for what they were legally and specifically allowed to carry. They had tons on tons, about 30 tons worth of ammonium nitrate just in one area. So, as the fire slowly grew and the ammonium nitrate heated and heated, the explosion that was caused was devastating.
So following the incidents, the student whose name is Mr. B wrote an article called "The West Texas Ammonium Nitrate Fertilizer Explosion and a Failure of Regulations." And basically he summarized a 3-point thing were to minimize of this happening again. And the first point was to create a separate building for the ammonium nitrate to be stored in, and have it built in a way to minimize uncontrollable fires. This would be limitations of electrical wire, lighting, electricity, and also have systems in place with fire detection and fire submission. Also, the second point was to add a chemical to ammonium nitrate to make it less explosive. This would be salt phosphate, where it's less explosive and more stable. And also, his last point is to make them a code and make them where the facility couldn't just wave them off. They would have to follow these codes. And if they were to break them, have it where it's not, they just pay X amount of money and then end of story. There need to be real consequences if this code is not followed, because there could be another accident and more deaths.
Looking at key flaws in the building's architecture, we are able to show the buildup in the West Fertilizer incident. And by doing so, we're also able to bring up factors that might have prevented in this incident and others in the future. Some of these factors include having bins which the fertilizer was stored in to be non-combustible, and other fire safety features such as automatic sprinkler systems, monitor security that led to a central station, building and a fire code, and having the company being subjected to local regulations. The West Fertilizer plant was at the city limits of West Texas, and the building itself was outside the city proper. Yet the city had neither a building code or a fire code, as I said. Although built in 1962, the building over the years has gone over several construction and maintenance, yet the design of it remained the same overall, such as the building being made of 90% wood. The only thing that was non-combustible was the concrete floor, the metal sheeting, and the metal sheds that separated the fertilizer. Knowing all these factors, we are able to see how the buildup of the incident happened and how preventable it could have been if the company were to take these extra measures.